Brewster's done a lot of things, and he said, as a digital librarian, why don't we do it as metadata? So these are tags that you might associate with Brewster: MIT, AI, supercomputers, connection machine, Museum of Modern Art, thinking machines, Waze, wide area information servers, AOL, Alexa, Amazon, Internet Archive, archive.org, Wayback Machine, Great 78 Project, EFF, Creative Commons, Public Knowledge, Internet Hall of Fame, National Academy of Engineering, American Academy of Arts and Sciences. Brewster.
Thank you. That was the briefest and most awesome introduction ever. And it's a pleasure to be here and actually with Paul, sort of a hero in my world, of going and showing that you can be free hosting and free services for the world. And Biblio has played this role for many crucial cultures that existed online that didn't have institutional backing. And basically, Paul and Biblio gave people a home in cyberspace and security, that it would last a long time, and that was really fabulous. Also, MCNC, that's here in North Carolina, has been really foundational since the earliest days of the internet, and had a very public spiritedness to it. So it's really terrific to be back. When we were walking around the last couple hours in the quad, I don't know if you can quite see, there's these students. It says Free Advice Friday. Ask us anything. And so we as librarians came wandering by and said, hi. And we asked, so how do we make libraries useful to you? How do we make libraries relevant to you guys? For instance, here, Steve, he's got this awesome collection of Southern folk life, of 78s, and just an amazing collections of music. And the young woman there said, wow, I started the club of the Bluegrass Club here, and I had no idea that you were there. Right? And who said, yeah, we've got all of this amazing works of early, unique, no other place has that. Didn't know that you had it. And we said, so how can we make libraries relevant to you? How do we make it so that these materials? And she said, you've got to put it in front of our faces. Right? And we wandered off saying, well, we should talk about finding aids. It's like, no, that wasn't what she was talking about. We have to get it out of the libraries and into the quad. We have to get it out there in such a way that it's much more relevant. So anyway, I thought that was completely fun and very UNC to have a couple of people just saying, free advice. I think we should have our librarians out there on the quad saying, free advice, ask me anything, and just get it in front of their faces. I would like to speak about universal access to all knowledge. That's been a dream since the Library of Alexandria, and I think we can actually do it now. And the reason why I think we can do it is because we have the technologies to do it. We've got the political spirit to be in a free and open environment. Universal education is cherished. And I'd say actually historically, that's maybe, and geographically, that may be the most rare, that we're in a place and a time where the idea of access to everything is politically okay. I don't know how long that will last, but let's make hay while the sun is shining, and let's try to build universal access to all knowledge. We'll have to do it together. So who are we? The Internet Archive is an organization I started 20 years ago. They're building. Molly Bragg used to work there. Who's in the audience. And Elizabeth, who's still here, works at the Internet Archive. And it's a library, nonprofit, but it's not associated with a university or a government. It's an independent nonprofit. We see ourselves within the culture of libraries. This is the door, above the door of the Boston Public Library, carved in stone. I always like looking at what people carve in stone, because it's something they really think is important to their central soul. And this is free to all. Then information and libraries serve a different kind of role in the world than sort of normal commerce. That this was put there by robber barons 100 years ago. And so there's a spirit that libraries play a different role than everything that goes through normal commerce. So if we're going to try to do universal access to all knowledge, let's try to break it down into, say, media types. Books, music, video, web pages, software. And to try to go and say, how big is it and how are we doing towards this general vision? So let's start with texts. If we take all the books that have been published, a little hard to count, but if we take the largest library in the world, the Library of Congress, they say it's about 28 million volumes, 28 million books. A book is about a megabyte, if you have it in Microsoft Word. So 28 million megabytes is 28 terabytes. 28 terabytes. That's 4 hard drives that you can buy at Best Buy for less than a month's rent. You could store all of the words in the Library of Congress for that much money. So technologically, it's all completely doable. If you have images of pages, they come larger, but we're still talking completely reasonable in terms of size of data, which is, I think, kind of astonishing. People are getting used to these things being online, page flippers on books or reading Kindles. It's not like, oh my God, nobody's going to ever read on a screen anymore. But we can also make it available to people that are outside of the realm of the internet. You can actually, we made a bookmobile. So you can download, print, and bind a book, and kids can make their own books and walk away with a book. It costs about $1 a book to download and print a short book, like an Alice in Wonderland kind of book. So at $1 a book, it's less costly to give the book away than it is for all the administrative costs of lending one out and putting it back on the shelf. Okay, you don't waste trees, but the idea is we can get things out there and do in different ways. But really, it's going to be on screens, and they're doing very well. Even scanned pages are doing very well, so you don't have to do perfect OCR. On all the things that we scan, we go and make them available on lots of different devices, including my favorite, which is a talking device for the blind and dyslexic, the little bottom one. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we have these book scanners, and Google has also scanned an awful lot of books. I've never seen one of theirs because they're so secret, but ours are these scanners, and there are a couple of them here at UNC and one at Duke. And so we just basically take photographs of the pages. This is a scanning center that used to exist in San Francisco with microfilm down the center. Oh yeah, microfilm. So how many people have used microfilm in their lifetime? How many people have used microfilm in the last year? How many people liked using microfilm in the last year? Right? Nobody likes microfilm, but it's there and it's easy to go and digitize, so let's just digitize the whole darn thing. So we're starting to do more books. This is from the Rare Book Collection, Star Library at University of California, Berkeley. This is from Beijing. It's from Beijing, from the Chinese Academy of Sciences. And so we're starting to digitize at scale. Been looking for a couple of things. One is to get complete collections. Said, okay, why don't we go and try to do everything written in a language? So I asked the Greek government, and they were kind of busy imploding. The Icelandic folks actually seemed like they were going to get a lot further on this, and then there was somebody, out of 300,000 Icelandic people, everybody seemed to say yes, and there was somebody who said, no! And so, okay, this didn't happen. But the Balinese said yes. So we said, okay, let's digitize everything in Balinese. And it turns out the way that they write in Bali is on palm leaves. And so we've digitized all of the palm leaves in their major libraries. It's 3 million people on the island of Bali. And it's just this completely fun, beautiful work. And we said, okay, so how do you read it? He said, well, a lot of people don't know how to read it. It's actually, the priests know how to read it. It's like, okay, let's see if we can get some videos of them reading it, or how do we go and transcribe it and the like. So there's more to do, but also they're rendered in things like shadow puppet plays, which is pretty fun, or in dances. So that's actually how a lot of these materials. So I'd like to give a round of congratulations to the Balinese to step forward, to be the most modern, to go and have their whole liturgy, be the first literature to go completely online. So yay, Bali! So we have scanning centers all over the world now, and we're digitizing at about 1,000 books every day. We're doing a bunch of microfilm wherever we can find it, and if you do it inside the United States, it's about $30 a book. So all told, we've done about 3 million books, but they're almost all from before 1923, and that's because people got really worried about the copyright front, and I'm going to handle that a little bit more. We have about 1 million books that are available to the blind and dyslexic, and about 600,000 books that are modern books, digitized, scanned, and lent out, non-rights cleared books. So basically format shifting. So the idea of trying to figure out how do we get beyond this 1923 thing is something we have to do. The idea of our digital libraries only having either out of copyright materials or currently licensed materials is going to make a lame and not very good digital library. Libraries are full of copyrighted materials. That's almost everything in a library is copyrighted materials, and our job as custodians and making it available free to all. So how do we do that without running afoul of copyright interests? Well, the libraries, what do? They buy and they lend things. So why don't we do that in the digital realm and do format shifting as needed? So as we have materials that are in our libraries, we buy what we can in digital form, but if it's not available, or if we like the old version, we scan it. We scan what we have, and scan what we have to, buy what we can. And that approach has been working out very well. So let me describe a little bit about how this works, and how you guys can play a major role in this going forward. We did a site called openlibrary.org, which is a website that has a web page on every book, and it tries to link to a digital version if either Google has it or if we have it, and the like. And you can borrow books from this website. So if you log in, you can go and see a book like this. This is a book, an EPUB that we purchased from this, and but it's checked out by somebody. So the copy that we have is checked out. Okay, you have to wait. So you put it on your waiting list. If you take a less popular book, like this awesome Mayflower Ancestors book from the Boston Public Library, which they digitized, this 1994 book in copyright, non-rights cleared book, and they put it in the open library and said, you can borrow this from us, the Boston Public Library. So you can click on that and say you want either read it in a browser or you want one of those exploding PDFs that expire after two weeks. You say, gosh, I want the browser version. Click and see and run it. And now you've checked out and you can read these on your screen or on your devices that you can download to. So so if you go to openlibrary.org, which I highly recommend, you can see how you can go and borrow books. Now we're trying to bring this out so that lots of people can become open libraries. So we have about 1.5 million books that have been donated to us. We're going and digitizing these, making them available in this way. But we'd like it so that UNC, Duke, all libraries become digital libraries. So what we'd really like to do is wave a wand over all libraries and go and say, boink, now you have digital versions of all of your print versions. And then your patron can make a choice of going and saying, I want the digital version instead of the physical version, or vice versa, either one. But at any one time, only the number of copies that you have physically will be circulated. So controlled circulation, digital lending. But do it across the whole library system to bring all of them digital. Does that make sense? So digitize a book once and make it available through the libraries for their patrons based on their own physical holdings. So the idea is to make all libraries digital libraries, so we can fill in that missing century of books. Because we have, if you look at the graphs of the books that are in Amazon, it just craters after 1923 and doesn't come up until the end of the 20th century. The same thing with the Internet Archive's collections, or what's in the Google's public collections. So can we go and do this? This is a program that we're just really getting on with now called Open Libraries. So we have one open library. Can we make all books, all libraries open libraries? So we, there's some libraries that have hooked themselves up with Library Link, which is a product by Zephyria, which is an open link data type service that basically can allow us to download all of the holding records very efficiently from 1,200 libraries, so we did. And one of them is the Delaware County Library, and we basically made a collection on archive.org of the books that we've already digitized that are in their collection. So take the overlap of those two, and it turned out there are 47,000 overlapped books. And we said, okay, well, what we'd really like to do is lend those based on the physical copies they have. But in the meantime, why don't you just see which ones we have that are in the library. So available to borrow is 39,000, and on the wait list is 7,000 as of when I took that snapshot. So the idea is to make it so that the Delaware County Library System can lend out e-copies to those that prefer e-copies. If they want the physical copies, great. But this is a way of doing either one of these systems. And it's all around working. Another of the sort of early part of the Open Libraries program, one of our little local library in San Francisco, an independent library called the Mechanics Institute Library. We've been trying to surface borrowable books on their website. So if you go to their catalog and you go and search on this particular book, let's see if I'm going to try the dreaded, let's see if we can do a live demo. Let's see if this works and comes back. And so Mechanics Institute Library, and it says, this book, you can read it on the Internet Archive. And it's got a little icon saying that it's checkoutable. There it is, the world's major libraries. I want to borrow this book. Click on it, and wait. Bingo! Now I can read this book and search it and be able to cite it and get to the pages from their catalog. The idea is to make it so that those users of the Mechanics Institute Library, they have all these books that they can go and check out electronic copies of these books. Sort of sounds simple and kind of obvious, but it hasn't really been done yet. So this is the idea. So what we'd really like to do is work with organizations that want to take the step forward, either by leveraging the digital materials that we've already digitized, or you guys can start digitizing your own. And the idea of doing the post-1923 to build a complete library for those that prefer it as digital. Again, if it's physical you prefer, go for it. But if it's digital, let's offer that ability as well. So this program, it started 6 years ago with Boston Public Library and a lot of other libraries doing small numbers of their books, about 600,000 of ours. And it's all around working for the last 6 years. Now we want to basically make it so that all libraries become open libraries. Okay, so that's kind of books. I'm going to keep right. Now let's go to music. So what does it take to do all of, oops, next, all of music? Well, this is an area that's got a lot of lawyers in it. So through the 2000s, when there's all the Napster suits and things like that, we tried to find people that would be happy to share. And it turns out there are lots of bands that follow the Grateful Dead's tradition of allowing people to record their concerts and make copies of them and share them with their friends as long as nobody made any money. And so we sent out an email to this taper community, the eTree community that is on Biblio, and we said, would you like unlimited storage and unlimited bandwidth forever for free? And they wrote back and said, we don't believe you. But if you could do that, it would be our dream. And it's a good sign when somebody says it would be your dream, and we said, work with us. Why don't we try to figure out how to make this go? And it was a little different than just going and posting on a website, then tape trading. So we said, let's ask for some level of okay from somebody in the band, right? Or somebody associated with that. There's a whole lot less than your lawyers who go and say, oh, it's got to be a triplicate with, thumbprints and article scans and whatever. We said, it could be an email from the drummer. Right? It was just sort of anybody that sort of says, yeah, it's within our taper-friendly thing to go and put it up on the web. We've gotten 1, 2, or 3 every day over the last 10 or so years. We've got 6,000 bands, 130,000 concerts now up, and everything the Grateful Dead has ever done. So it's a system that's been working. We found also there were other collections that had gone offline, like mp3.com, the Underground Music Archive. So we just brought those all back up from the Wayback Machine and from donations, and people have all been happy that things have come back up. This idea that people are going to get mad just rarely happens. And if they do, you explain to them and usually they're happy. Or if they still don't want to be there, then you just take them down. There's been net labels. These are labels that found that they couldn't sell through CD outlets, but they needed free hosting, so we offer them free hosting. There's been lots of success there, and we're starting to work with real labels to try to move them online, to figure out how to do that in such a way that it doesn't interrupt commerce. We've been working with the Archive of Contemporary Music in New York, completely wild place, run by Beat George, the guy in orange over there, and starting to digitize massive quantities of materials. One of the first we've really started with is 78 RPM records. And they, Archive Contemporary Music, helped arrange for the first parts of our collection to be built physically. So the Internet Archive, we thought, oh, we want one copy of everything ever published digitally, so we can make it available. But it turns out libraries are throwing things out at a velocity. So we said, okay, why don't we figure out how to collect those physical materials as well. So we bought a warehouse and we started filling it up, and we filled it up. So we bought another one. So the idea is to go and have one copy of every physical thing. And it turns out if you put it densely enough, the published works of humankind are just not that big, physically. And they're just not that big digitally. So it's the published works, because it's just such a small set. So we're starting to get more of it. So Batavia Public Library in Illinois didn't know what to do with their old 78, so they wanted to donate them to somebody, and so they donated them to us. And we've been digitizing them and about 20 other collections into what we call the Great 78 Project. And I have to say, 78 RPM records are awesome. And they were before my time, and they're just weird and wacky things. Like yodeling was really kind of a thing. Ukuleles and accordion music, and klezmer that didn't just all sound like that wedding music. There's a really broad range of awesome music that you just don't find in any other medium, and it's really not very available to people. So we've been starting to digitize 78 RPM records at scale. Of the ones that have been donated to us. We got funding to digitize anything that we physically own. So people are just donating things to us largely so that they can get them digitized and get them back. So this is the collection. We've now got 38,000. We're going at about 5,000 or 6,000 a month. And it's starting to really catch on. The Boston Public Library just deaccessioned their whole sound archives to us. So it's about 250,000 LPs, 78s, and CDs. And they're right now being packed up. We're going to store them forever. We're digitizing them and giving them back the audio because they see themselves in the access business, and they weren't getting any access sitting in the basement. and there are even formats that people didn't really even know how to use anymore. So this was we're putting in the money to be able to do this. And so these LP donations are starting to come in from lots of different places. We've really been working on the technology for doing a really good job of digitizing 78s, LPs, and CDs. CDs sound really easy, they're not. To do all of the artwork, the metadata, getting the exact transcriptions of all the bits on the old CDs is actually pretty challenging. But we're getting better at it. And the question is how much access can you do? With the 78s, we're putting everything up in awesome levels of quality. And that's not caused any problems. And the LPs and the CDs, we're not quite sure. So at this point, we're doing on-campus use of the CDs. And for the world, we're doing 30 seconds. And so for the 30 seconds, then we link to Spotify and YouTube and Amazon to help people buy things. And then I'm hoping that as that sort of calms down, of all the things that are at least not in print, currently hawked by something like a Spotify or on YouTube, we'll just make available, at least streaming, but hopefully a whole lot more for the CDs. 78s, free to fly, everything's working, nobody's complaining, awesome. So a lot of what the Internet Archive does is try to figure out how to bring this balance. How do you get things out there anyway? Right? So there's the book lending, there's the 78s we just allowed out and free. We're doing 30 seconds on CDs, and it's all about sort of trying to get things out there in such a way that we don't interrupt commerce so much that they throw lawyers at us. That's the general trick. So how do we do this at scale? We need to work together. So the collection of 78s that are here, that's fantastic. Right? We're unlikely to have people donate those to us, a lot of those. So if those don't get digitized from here, who's going to learn from them? Who's going to enjoy them? And why are they even here? And why are they in a public institution? What about public isn't being served by having them stored someplace that the kids in the quad that are running the Bluegrass Club don't even know about them? So how can we get these things up and out? We can make it cheap, but we can't force you guys to do it. So we're trying to work with people to make paths to move these things forward. So the audio collection, we've got about 3 million audio items now and 12,000 collections of lots of things that people have uploaded in different ways, or different organizations have used us as free hosting. So even audio, which comes larger than digitized books, is possible to go and put online. Moving images. So most people think of moving images as Hollywood films. And true, we haven't done as much with those as we have with other, at least as much access, not a lot of preservation, but not a lot of access to the Hollywood films. So we've been finding things that we can do that we can make accessible. So we've been doing old films that were sort of not Hollywood type films. So the old educational films, old advertisements, government propaganda films, that type of thing, and digitizing these things and making them available. And they're really popular. I don't know why. These are like, are you ready for marriage? And it's sort of this couple is like, are you ready for marriage? And this old guy, kind of tries to talk them down from being enthusiastic about each other. And this is the old social behavior films from the 1950s, and they're used a lot. We got Penn State donated 7,000 reels. It came in about 2 shipping containers of their educational films, and they donated to us, and we just digitized them and all put them up. If anybody complains, we take them down. And you know how many people have complained? Nobody. So the idea is just make these things available. We've also allowed people to just click upload and upload. We're getting better at film digitization with inexpensive equipment. We're doing VHS tapes. The VHS tapes that aren't Hollywood films, because those are available on DVDs and Blu-rays and things like that. But sort of, the old exercise videos, or training videos, or how to use that, your new Christmas present of that fly rod, you know, these sort of weird, or the construction videos, or the sort of language tapes, and so these kind of weird things that people then go and reuse into video collages, or actually I'm not quite sure why they use them, but they get used quite a bit. Maybe it's just, you know, harkening back on, you know, when our parents used to go and just slam the cassette in and just have us watch it because they're making dinner. And I don't know, but at least it's part of our cultural heritage, and it makes sense to make available. So we've been doing that with volunteers and all around working. Television. We started collecting television in the year 2000. The Library of Congress was supposed to, and they just didn't. So in the year 2000, we hit the record button. Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Iraqi, Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, ABC, Fox. 24 hours a day, DVD quality. So it's just been recorded. We're now doing about 60 channels. And we took the US television news, and we wanted to have it be accessible. So the Vanderbilt Television News Archive down in Nashville, Vanderbilt University, they've been basically recording and then making an index that you can go and search and find a clip, and they send it to you on DVD. So we thought, okay, why don't we do that but do it a little bit more modern? So we took the collection, and you can search on what people said, and you can get back a 1 to 3 minute clip. And you can go and use those in your blogs or whatever. We think of it as an index. But for a lot of people, that's all they need. If they want the whole thing, we stamp it onto a DVD, send it to you, and then you have to send it back. And it's basically just building on the Vanderbilt tradition. But it's made it so that we've been able to put up all of the television news publicly available, US television news, and we've been doing it for years, and we have a couple million hours of it, which is pretty great. We've taken another couple steps beyond that. And trying to leverage data miners. So during the elections, we collected 4 channels of television from 20 battleground states, and then used people to go and find all the political ads, one copy, and then used audio fingerprinting to find all of the other occurrences of that ad, so we can track what ads are being shown where, and then we worked with other nonprofits to find out who is funding them, and then who are the organizations hiding funding from them. And so and we basically could go and show where the money is going in this Citizens United universe. And spoiler alert, there's a lot of money going and showering down on these battleground states buying television ads. We're able to also do something pretty fun, which was we took the debates, and we found what the clips of the debates were being clipped in the different stations. So the different cable stations, what did they use as the roundups? Because it turns out that psychologically people can all watch the same thing, but it's the people that come right after that go and say, well, this was really important because of this and this and this and this, that actually shape how people viewed what happened. And it was very different what was used between Fox, MSNBC, and CNN. Very different. So we can start to document the different bubbles that we're starting to live in. We've now also taken the lower third, the sort of the where they put the chirons on the bottom, the words they think are important, and these different stations will sometimes have the same press conference going on, and they'll pull out different things that you're supposed to pay attention to. So we're OCRing those and making that into a database that then can be used by people to go and analyze what's going on the news. So Vox went and took all of these that we did during the hurricane season that just came through, and they found that of the 3 landfalls, Houston was talked a lot about, Florida was talked about, Puerto Rico, not so much. So you can start to document this. Then a couple weeks later, the New York Times used this to go and analyze the different perspectives on the Manafort indictment. When he went into the FBI, the amount of minutes that were spent on Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN. CNN spent 60 minutes on it. They took all the advertisements off. MSNBC about 57 minutes, and Fox News about 25 minutes. And the other things that were being talked about during those times, you could go and track based on this. The idea here is to go and allow people to take a meta level of what's going on, to do data mining across large data sets, to not to just find bits and pieces based on searching and retrieving, but to be able to get a bigger idea of what's going on. And I think that we'll be surprised sometimes. And sometimes it'll just be reinforcing to the, of course I know there's a difference between that, but we can start to document it. In fact, we can start to produce services that allow people to take a meta view if we do our jobs right. So not only can we do good analysis of these, but we might be able to start weave together how was a particular event portrayed on different news outlets. And maybe we can build meta services that will help give people a broader view of what it is that's going on. But we're at least trying to build the collections and make it so that this stuff can be data bindable and usable. So this is the Snowden example, and you can see these things. So even moving images is quite possible to go and digitize and make available at scale. We have about 3 million items up on the net. Books, music, video. Sometimes we get attention from people who are not really looking for attention. So because we have all of these materials, we're kind of the library of the internet. We got one of those nasty grams from the FBI where they wanted to know about a patron of the Internet Archive, and they wanted us to not ever say that they even came and asked. It's one of these national security letters with a gag order. And it was not a good day. I asked our lawyer from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, so did this come from a court? They said, no, it just came from some guy in the government. Like, really? Can we ask for a court to, can we push back? They said, no. What if we don't do it? Jail. Like, okay. Is there anything we can do? And they said, yes. There is something you can do, which is you can sue the United States government. So we sued the United States government. And we won. So as a library, the idea of protecting our patrons' reading habits and writing habits is something that is very important to us. There's a long history of bad things happening when people can get rounded up for things that they've read in libraries. So it's important. And because we're a library, we were able to push back and win. I bring this up because there's only been 3 others that have pushed back against the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of these letters publicly pushed back. And I just want to make sure that you understand that you can push back as well and be able to make it through these balances that everyone's trying to make. Software. So software is a little bit more challenging because it's often on obsolete platforms. So we've developed a emulation system so that you can go and run old platforms like Apple IIs or IBM PCs in JavaScript in your browser. It's a little surreal. You click and this piece of software that sort of was written in 1990 wakes up. And it's not in a PC, it's actually in a browser, in emulation mode. And so this software has got sort of probably a little strange birthing experience or rebirthing experience, but it comes up and you can play old software, and that's been working well too. So we made lots of it available, and some of the publishers came back and said, we're still hawking that, and that. So we just took those down. And that's all around work. And to their credit, they didn't go and say, look, I'm Broderbund. I own the rights to everything. I want you to take everything down. They said, no, they just took down the ones that they're currently hawking. And that's okay. They can try to make, we want access, universal access, and if they're still providing access, go for it. We're patient. They'll go out of business. And then we'll then put those back up. We're probably best known for archiving the World Wide Web. So we archive, we try to archive every web page from every website every 2 months. Take a snapshot, start again, snapshot, snapshot, snapshot. We've been doing it since 1996. It's been getting big, so it's a large collection. And we're not just doing it with robots. We now have about 1,000 librarians and 500 institutions that are building subject-based collections of web pages. And one of the great things about librarians, I can say this because I am one, is we're really picky, right? We want it done well. So the idea is to go and make sure that the web, which wasn't really designed for being archived, we've been able to make a good copy and try to be able to play it back. We made this into the Wayback Machine in 2001, where we made all of this available to everybody for free. Oh yeah, our lawyers said bad things were going to happen to us by doing this, because everything's copyrighted, and everything's copyrighted forever. So we're making everybody else's stuff available verbatim up on the internet again, and we just try to be responsive if people want it taken down. It's often for privacy reasons. The only times we tend to push back are sometimes when politicians want to take things away, which is happening. But there's pets.com, so what these things all look like, what Pinterest look like, and then sort of evolution of these sites. And the idea here is to go and provide an enduring record of our time. The average life of a web page is about 100 days before it's either changed or deleted. And we're pouring our lives into this and all of our records. So can we go and make this stuff available? We have about 300 billion web pages now. We collect about 1 billion a week. It's enormous. And it's used a lot. The Wayback Machine is used by several 100,000 people every day. It's a database of 500 billion web objects that gets queried about 2,000 to 3,000 times a second. So it's a fairly major piece of technology, but we try to portray it as a fairly simple system. It also helps hold some people accountable. So in George Orwell's 1984, one of his job was to go and change history, right? To go and put things into the memory hole. And so the idea of changing things in history it's been warned about. And one of our users pointed this out many, many years ago. This was a press release posted on the White House of the president on an aircraft carrier saying mission accomplished. And the headline is President Bush announces combat operations in Iraq have ended. And then a couple months later, they changed it to say major combat operations have changed. That's a difference. It wasn't noted, it just changed. And then a couple months after that, they took it offline completely. And so actually I'm not quite sure, which is worse, changing the past or deleting the past? But at least there's record of it someplace, but it's not really woven into the website particularly well. So we've made little extensions, please use them, for Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Edge, that watches watches for 404s, and if you get a 404 document not found, it looks it up and says, hey, the Wayback Machine's got it. Do you want it? And you can click yes and see a past version. So the idea is to try to make the web more robust. We've also been working with Wikipedia. There's now a robot that's been approved by many of their communities to run over the links that are in the footnotes, and for all the dead web links, go and replace it with an archive.org link if we have it. And we've fixed now over 2 million links in Wikipedia to existing resources. So we're trying to basically fix some of the broken nature of the current web. I mean, the brilliant thing about the web is that it was so simple. The bad thing about the web is it was so simple. And so can we go and repair it by being a library after the fact? And that's some of what we're doing. So next up, digital personal archives. That's some of the things that we've got to work on that is important to try to do, and it's not being done very well. Okay, say you collect a lot of physical stuff and a lot of digital stuff. What do you do with it? How do you try to keep this stuff alive? If we're trying to build the Library of Alexandria version 2, we should probably learn from the Library of Alexandria version 1. What's the Library of Alexandria version 1's probably best known characteristic?
It burned down.
It burned down. It's not here anymore. The center of learning for 500 years in the ancient world is not here anymore. The director of the Library of Alexandria said there's only 8 pieces of papyrus they believe that are extant today that were ever in the Library of Alexandria of the ancient world. And these are actually scholars' notes that they took away with them. It's just so completely gone. So, if they had made another copy and put it into China or India, we'd have the other plays of Euripides, the other works of Aristotle. But we don't. They are gone. So we're trying to figure out, how do you make this stuff last? Well, one is make copies. So when they were starting the new Library of Alexandria, we said, hey, why don't you have a copy of us? And so this is what it looked like in 2002 when we put a copy of the Internet Archive's web collections and some movie collections in the Library of Alexandria, when it was 200 terabytes. We have another partial copy in Amsterdam. This is what it looked like in San Francisco when we were about 2 petabytes in 2008. This is what the Wayback Machine looked like in 2009. It's actually in a shipping container. So I can ask the question, how big is the web? Oh, wait, actually, you have to ask me, how big is the web?
How big is the web?
It's 20 feet by 8 feet by 8 feet, and it weighs about 26,000 pounds. That if you divide it by the number of web pages, that's about 80 micrograms a hit. So that's the size of the web. It's about 30 petabytes now. This is the types of machines that we use for it, and we're getting better at physically collecting things by having putting books or these CDs and things like that in boxes, in pallets, in shipping containers, in warehouses surrounded by nonprofits. So the idea is to sort of have different types of protections for these types of materials. So the idea of collecting digitally is possible if we all work together on it. The idea of finding ways to not deaccession your materials is doable. If you are going to deaccession to us, we'll digitize them and give you back digital copies. But the idea is let's build the library system that people are actually thinking is already there. We've convinced people to turn to their screens to answer questions. They're digital learners now. It's as if it's not digital, it's as if it doesn't exist. But you know what? It's really thin. A lot of the materials that are the good materials are in libraries like here, and they're not online, and they're not available to the Wikipedia users, the Google users, the journalists trying to understand a subject. They're just not there. So we have to go further. I think of Wikipedia as a great front door. Now it's time to build the rest of the house. And there's nothing stopping us from doing it. We have mechanisms to deal with the cost issues. It's just not that expensive. We have ways of dealing with the rights issues. All of it's generally working. People are saying go further faster. We can build this together. A few of our upcoming projects, I said Personal Digital Archives, we're working to make a copy in Canada and try to make that a living copy and trying to figure out how do you go and make more decentralized versions. We're trying to actually reinvent some of how the web works itself so that websites are not as fragile. Right now, if you stand in the way of a website, you can bring it down completely. How do you have websites live everywhere and nowhere? How do you have scientific journal publishing not be in one and only one place? How do you make it so that libraries can go and have multiple copies so that they're closer to their users, both for preservation and for data mining type of access? We'd like to protect our users better and ourselves, and we're upgrading our operational security. Oops, misspelled operational. And all in all, we're trying to become a better library for the digital learners. The idea of being in a post-truth world or an alt-facts world is just not good enough, right? It's our job to go and make it so that it's right in front of their faces, that the materials are there for them. Even though they may not know they should go and use your funny finding aid at some website with something or other. No, we have to bring it out to them and find them wherever they're looking for. This digitize and lend is something that we can all work together on and build open libraries. So in conclusion, universal access to all knowledge. It is quite doable. We're in a unique time frame, technologically and politically, to be able to pull this off. And I think it could be one of the greatest achievements humans have ever done, like the man on the moon, or the Library of Alexandria. I think this is a good group, you know, to really help move this forward, as you have in the past. And to just the closing photograph, carved in stone, of Carnegie's legacy, who is not known to be a nice guy, and is free to the people. Thank you very much.